All
All
right.
right.
Well, all right. Well, I guess we are you ready to get started then, Stan?
Yeah, it was a great ride over. Thanks for having me, Tim. It's fun.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for coming.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
well, yeah, I'm
we're
gonna
gonna
mute everybody out so that way we don't have static on the line here.
okay, wind trail. You can see on the contract. There's the address. Now, what made this fun is as we got further and further into it, it became a real challenge because this particular house is in a 100-year floodplain. So we had some insurance issues we had to deal with at the very end, but we worked through those and finally got it all put together. So let's just work through it and let you see what the contract has to say. Uh, Pretty straightforward contract. Buyer and seller are up here. This is the legal address of the property, and then we get down to the numbers is really pretty simple. And Tim, if you want to hop in and say something, just hop in, okay?
All right, sounds good.
So this particular house we sold for 116,900. They're putting $9,000 down. Now that's $1,000 cash and $8,000 worth of tax credit, and we've quit calling it tax credit for the title company people. We're calling it $8,000 of additional. Let's see, what do we call it, Tim? Additional down payment, and to be paid at a later date. And we scoped all that out for everybody, so we let them know what it was. But basically, this person is buying the house for 116,900, and they're going to finance 107,900. So from that, you can see in the contract
Yeah,
that
I know that when we created when you guys created this contract, it was from the beginning. But we changed the structure a little bit. So uh, you know, based on the way we closed it, we would have put $1,000 in the cash portion because that's how much the buyer put down, and we would have put 115,900 in the financing. And what we did was we broke the financing in two parts. One for $107,900 and another one for $8,000 as a second lien. So I wanted to make a point on that.
absolutely. So you can see from this contract that we have seller financing over here. We have seller financing of 107,900. Now we restructured the contract again, as Tim was saying, as we got further along. They gave us $1,800 worth of earnest money, and that's my little LLC. So I had the earnest money, and it turned out real good. So there's the original contract, and other than that, there's not a whole lot to it, other than we need to change our form. It didn't quite fit on the page. The basic rest of the contract talks about surveys, title objections, any of those kinds of things. And Tim, you want me to go through this whole contract? I mean, we've done a couple of these now.
Yeah, I think you've gone through them before, so I don't think we need to go through too detailed here. But yeah,
Let's see. We were going to close it February 10th. It finally closed. Finally closed yesterday as we worked through some insurance issues. But basically, as you can see, we're selling the house as is, where is, and then this is the phrase that we redid, and we made it so that it's an $8,000 second lien on the property. Okay, and so we've got another contract where they've signed off on all that, so everybody's good on the contract. So anyhow, that's what the contract turned out being. Let me pull up the HUD here and let's see if we can see that. There we go. So this is the HUD, and Tim, if you want to walk everybody through this and where we put everything, it's pretty simple to see. Let me hang on one second. I can't make my little arrow guy get off of there. Anyhow, we're at the contract sales price is right here, 116,900. We have some HOA prorations that they've credited the seller and they've charged the buyer, and then we've also got. Let me scroll down a little bit. And we have settlement charges on the back page of 1,700 for the seller, This is showing you that they gave the $1,800 to me. That should have been my LLC name. We'll get that changed. And then we have a second lien on here of $8,000. And so that is a charge to the buyer, and then that's a credit over here to the seller. Okay, everybody see that? So that zeroes itself out. All right. And then from that, you can see the official final numbers. As it turned out, the seller brought with her $700 to close the house, and the buyer, brought $1,049 to close the house. Now, this was an extremely motivated seller. I mean, think of this: if you're selling a house and it's going to cost you money to sell it, she was really motivated. She was really ready to move on, and she had already moved on. All right. So the second page of the HUD is pretty simple as well. Let me get these brought up. Basically, what we did on this is pretty much split everything except for the title policy. So the document prep was $400. We split that. The notary service, they both split the notary service and paid $165 each. We had to restructure this loan a little bit, so the buyer paid $600 for that. This is the title insurance, so that's split as the law would have it. The escrow fees, they split that down the middle. The guarantee fees, they split that. The recording fees, the reason this one's a little more expensive is because we had to record that second lien. Okay, they did a data trace search, and go ahead.
And all of these fees that you guys seeing are pretty standard stuff. So if you look at any closing, these things are very standard.
And they had a messenger that they split that fee on, and then this particular, I went down and paid for the resale certificate. We were in a hurry to get it, and so instead of waiting for it to be emailed and doing it online and all that, it was just real easy for me to run down there and give them a check for $150, and then I faxed it from their office so they would have it that day. So that's the HUD, and then you can see kind of how it all came out. Now, this turned out to be really interesting, and I may just stumble through here and find the right piece of paper. This is the deed of trust. Tim, you want to explain to them what the deed of trust is?
Here in Texas, we use the deed of trust. Some of other states might use a mortgage, but basically, a deed of trust is saying that it's putting your house up as a collateral, letting the bank know that that if you don't make your mortgage payments, that the bank or the lender has the right to foreclose on you and get the deed to the property. So so I guess deed of trust is, well, it's putting your house in collateral. I mean, that's probably the easiest way to explain it.
Right. And this was funny because this is the one that Tim, that our student caught. These are all documents that are pretty generic, and they make them out for one person, and then they change them, for whoever's they're closing for. And one of our students caught this. This is the wrong name on this. They did change that, but when we got it, it had the wrong name on it. So they went back and made those changes. So when you guys are closing these, it's just super important that you read these. Okay, I mean, it's really important that you read everything.
Right.
And this is the other thing that was a mistake on it as well. We are the obligation is $107,900, but it says right here $160,000 and no 100s. So that's still left over from where they used that deed of trust before, and they just didn't quite get all the information corrected on it. But we saw that, and our student had a good catch on that, and it turned out fine. We went ahead and made the changes, and turned out really well. And this is the clause, Tim, where they took care of that $8,000 promissory note. They took care of it here. Then I've got that note as well, and I'll show it to everybody. But that's the clause that tells where that $8,000 is going. And then let me pull up that note. Let me get my little arrow here. Hang on. There we go. And this is this is the note and assignment of notes. Let's go back. So think of this: we've got this secondary this promissory note, and we've got that right here. This is the warranty deed with vendor's lien. So what we did to keep this really clean is we made it out to the seller, and there's the $8,000. You can see that the $8,000 made out to the seller. Here's the right address. And what we did then is after we made that out to the seller, then the seller then assigned that to us so that everything's nice and clean and everybody has a good paper trail. So that's how that turned out. So you want to explain to them a little bit about that, Tim?
Yeah, well, this I guess you can say this is sort of like a modified version of what I normally teach about the release of equitable interest clause. And so, so basically we are the seller's owner financing both the $107,900 that was the price to the seller, and then we mark up $8,000 on top of that, which is our fee. But we wanted to keep the deal simple, so we put everything on the seller side, and we released our interest between the seller and us, so that way the seller has the right to go directly to the buyer, and to release that interest, we charge them this assignment of the mortgage in exchange for us releasing our contract, so that way the seller can get into contract with the buyer.
Right. And there was one little minor change here that Tim made a good catch on this one. We're going to pay $8,000 payable in one payment on September 1st. We changed that to on or before September 1st, so that when that tax credit comes, then we can go ahead and cash it then. We don't have to wait until September 1st, right?
Right, that is correct. And this is what, this is basically a balloon clause here, meaning that this lien is only for 6 months. So, in 6 months, if they don't pay us this $8,000, we have the right to foreclose on the house.
Perfect. So what else do we need to talk about on this one?
Um,
I think that's about all I have on it. That was
okay.
too quick. I got to go slower, don't I, Tim?
Do you have okay? Were there any more docs on the CDs, or is that it?
That's it. I mean, we
Okay.
could go through these. I mean, they just start. Everything's. Let me go back and see what's on all of these.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Do
it
you
just
guys,
goes on forever.
Kelly asked, is it possible to get a copy of the contract? Certainly. Let's see. You guys have any questions regarding what happens here? Do you understand it? Any of you don't understand what happened? Or maybe the better question might. Any of you who either don't know what it's like at a closing table when you buy a house, or have forgotten what it's like at the closing table when you buy a house?
Well, I would hope they'd have some questions, because Tim, you had to educate the title company on how we could do this, didn't you?
Right.
And you and I were on a three-way at least once, taking care of some of those issues. So that was a really it was an exciting time to see all of that come together finally at the end.
Right.
Really cool.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of these type of deals, if you're dealing with a title company that you haven't closed these type of transactions with, you do have to explain it to them, because otherwise they think you're doing something wrong.
So anyhow, it turned out great, and we got it closed. And Willie took the tax documents and got all that rounded up today, I believe. So we should be ready to send that off to the CPA sometime tomorrow or the next day, and then we'll wait to get our money. It's great. Turned out good.
Let me see here. Kelly asked, what title company did you use?
This was Old Republic Title in Keller, Texas, up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay. And Ron asked, is it standard for the buyer and the seller to split all those fees at closings? The answer is yes. It is very common for those fees to be charged evenly like that on both the seller and the buyer side. Okay. The only time when it's not common for sellers and buyers to split those closing costs like that is when us as an investor go in and make an all cash offer for us to pay all the closing costs, so that way the seller can know exactly how much they're going to net. So for example, and remember, all of these things with closing costs, it's just a matter of moving some numbers around. I'll give you an example. Let's say let's say I agree with the seller. The seller says, I want to sell my house for for $100,000. That's the least amount that I agree to. And let's say this house is worth 200,000, whatever, doesn't matter. And then I'll tell the seller, well, seller, there are going to be closing costs associated with with the $100,000 that you want. So how about this way? If you work with me, I'll pay for all of your closing costs, and I'll buy the house for $95,000. So that way the seller knows that they're going to get $95,000 out of it without worrying about closing costs. And so in that case, yes, I end up paying for all of the closing costs. However, the closing cost doesn't cost $5,000 on the seller side. So so I would have saved. I would have made an extra $3,000 or so by offering them that way. Okay. Or I can say, well, seller, the only way that I'm willing to to buy it at $100,000 is if you pay for all of the closing costs at $100,000. So all of these closing costs, they're all negotiable, and it's just a matter of moving the numbers around. You either lower the price or raise the price or whatever the case, and move the numbers around. So in the end, it's sort of the same. You understand what I meant by that? Or Stan, do you know what I mean? So if you know what I meant by the way I just explained it, maybe others will also understand it.
Yeah, I mean, all this is negotiable. Yes, I understand it.
Okay, cool.
That's what my wife says, Tim. Is Stan, if you can get it, I know my kids can get it.
Funny. Okay, RCS, so basically $8,000 transaction is occurring inside of closing. This does appear to be simpler. Yes, okay. The lien goes inside closing, but the actual payment happens outside of closing.
Right, and that's our fee for doing the deal is $8,000. That's what we made on it.
Right. Okay.
The initial asking price, Tim, was this is what she owes on the house, and that was negotiated that she needed $1,000 to move on. That's what the $1,000 cash was for, and ended up that she knew she was going to pay $700 by the time that we got it together at the beginning of the month. So that's how those numbers turned out that way. Now, what you have to be careful with, and it's what you and I skyped about this morning, is you've got to be careful that this is a 3-year balloon, and that in 3 years you've got to be sure that the buyer is still going to owe some money to the seller when they cash out on the balloon. So we don't want the seller to be upside down, and that's how we did the interest rate, so that the seller and the buyer would be pretty close. I think the buyer is going to have to pay the seller $1,000 to get out of it in 3 years to cash out. Is anybody still there, or is it me?
We're all still here.
Okay. Um, and Kelly's asking, I'm sorry to just jump in here, but Kelly's asking, did we travel there, or they did it over the phone? We had everything emailed to us, and then we had a closer showed up in Tim's office on the southwest part of town, and that's where everybody met.
Right. So they did a remote closing. So they hire a notary service company, and that's why they charge extra money for that. So if we had done this locally, then there wouldn't have been that notary fees being charged. And so yeah, and in this case, they hire a notary company and they charge. That's a lot of money. That's
Yeah, I thought there was a lot. $300 to close it was a lot
yeah, that's
for notary.
all right. Let me see here. You can't close deals over the phone because you need people to sign paperwork and you need to have paperwork notarized. But you can close anywhere. I mean, as you know, you can even send the notary public to a bank or to anywhere. Um, all right. How soon will you get the $8,000 fee? Stan, you want to explain what the CPA said?
As soon as the government sends it to us. Now, our CPA, if Mohammed had been on live deals, he would have heard this whole thing too. Because I called the CPA one morning just to say hello, and we got to talking about it, and he said that the government system is getting pretty backed up, and they're starting to be very careful about just signing off on these checks and putting them in the mail. So what was going to be a 4-week wait is turning into a 90-day to 120-day wait. So it just depends, and it depends on the government, because we wait sometimes 6 months for our refund check, and in some years it just shows up, in a couple of weeks. So it'll come when it comes. We're planning on it not taking past September 1st to get it.
Cool. Yeah, and it's one of those things. We do. I mean, we know the government checks are good. We know it won't bounce. I hope not. But yeah, it's going to be a delay now. It wasn't like before, where in the beginning it would take only 4 to 6 weeks for us to get our money, but now it's taking more than that.
But that'll be like Christmas, Tim. That check will show up, and we won't even be, we'll have forgotten about it by then. And it'll show up, and we'll be like, wow, Christmas time. We'll be having money. It's great.
Right. Kelly asked, what if the buyer asks how much closing costs will be? You can use this sort of to calculate some closing costs here, but I found a link somewhere. I forgot where that from AmeriPoint Title that has a little calculator that will calculate closing costs for you. Stan, do you remember that link that I
I don't
sent?
remember right here in front of me. I can go find it, but I don't remember it right now.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to find it and do a shortcut for you guys uh, to do that. But you a good example of it is if you look at this deal and the closing costs here. Okay, you look at this deal and the closing costs here. You are looking at you're looking at $1,800 in closing costs, which is about 1.5% of the sales price, right? Okay, and it is low like this because we're not charging the buyers any points or anything. There's no loan origination fee. There's no mortgage fees like they do when they get a loan from a bank. But typically, closing costs on the buyer side is more than this. If if you're getting a loan from the bank.
And Muhammad's asking Tim, did the government send a check to the buyer?
Well, you explain that.
Well, guys, what we're doing is we're using our CPA, and we're getting a power of attorney. This IRS form 2848 is the form, and basically when our CPA files this, he's going to ask that the check come back to him. And so this is making some assumptions. Assumption number one is that these people have not filed electronically. Now, if they filed electronically, it's a little different, but we'll go there next. But if they filed it through regular mail, then that check will come back to our CPA, who will then send it to me, and then I will go get the buyer and we'll cash it and make sure our money's there. Okay, so that's going to be a real simple thing to do. If it's done electronically, it could show up electronically in the buyer's account. And that's where we feel fairly safe, or as safe as we can feel with this lien in place. So if it gets to be about the 1st of August, I'm going to be calling these buyers going, hey, did you guys get your tax credit yet? And when it gets to be about 2 weeks before September 1st, middle of August, we're gonna be on them pretty good about getting our money put together. Okay, so that's the way we're going to get our money out of it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because what would happen if they don't, if we don't get our $8,000 tax credit and we foreclose on the house. That means now they get kicked out of the house and they would owe the IRS that $8,000. So, so it's in their best interest to give it up if it does get in their hands, basically.
Right, and the likelihood of us foreclosing is not real great, but the likelihood of us threatening to foreclose could be fairly strong, So if I were sitting in that house and somebody said, listen, I need my money, or and I heard the "or" word, I'd figure out a way to get it put in their pocket.
Right.
And the seller, like you said, has $5,000 of closing costs. That's what Kelly's asking, the closing cost question.
Well, as you can see here, the seller side closing cost is $1,700, so not much difference than the buyer side closing costs in this particular case.
And Kelly was asking Tim about closing costs. What we've been telling them on these $100,000 houses is the closing cost for the buyer will be around $2,000. And that way, when they get to closing and it's only $1,800, they're real happy with it.
Right.
Okay, what other questions do we have with this, Tim?
That's all the questions I see.
Yeah.
So I think you did a great job. Maybe can you just so that way we can use this for and send this out. Are you able to edit these docs to take out the seller's name and the property address?
Yes, sir. I can take these. I've got a PDF converter, so I can convert it to a Word file and change it.
Yeah. So change it and let's have these files available online so that way they can download it and study over it.
Okay.
So anything that's private, just replace it with something else.
Okay.
Kelly asked, I was wondering if flex option is legal in Wisconsin. It should be. It should be legal in all states. You can double check if you want, but I have a lot of different students that double check with their attorneys in different states, and so far I have not had anybody or any attorney said anything negative about it. So. So it should be fine. Because the flex option agreement is pretty it's a it's a it's a pretty standard agreement or an option. It's based off an option agreement. An option agreement has been around for centuries, pretty much. It's a lot more popular in the commercial world than it is in the residential world, but it's pretty standard stuff, and it should be fine.
Now, Tim, I always thought it was interesting that correct me if I'm wrong, option contract is the option to buy, but not the obligation to buy. Is that correct?
That is correct. Uh-huh.
Very good. Okay, big guy, what's next?
Well, that's all I have. I wanted to go over this deal, and so that way they know. Maybe we could talk about how did we yeah, how did we find a buyer? I know the seller was just an internet lead that Colleen called on, but how did we find a buyer?
We found the buyer also on an internet lead, also on Craigslist. So Colleen is one of our students. She lives in St. Paul, Minnesota, and she found the seller on an internet lead, and I believe it was either on the instant lead generator or it was on Do Deals Motivated Sellers, one of the other. And then she found the buyer. They found the buyer on Craigslist, and she has one of our. Go ahead.
Did she get the buyer from an ad that she posted, or she sent emails to buyers?
From an ad she posted.
Okay.
And she has a pretty good buyers list going now because she posts quite a few properties, and she's got a pretty good buyers list. This particular person, they showed it. Let's see, they showed it to 2 or 3 people at the very same time.
Mm-hmm.
And these people like the house quite a bit. And Willie, you know Willie. Willie is one of our students here in Houston. He showed the house for Colleen, and then he put the contract together and put the whole thing to bed, and he closed it. So he was kind of Colleen's eyes and ears and legs in Houston, and then Colleen kind of did all of the computer, internet stuff back in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Okay.
So that's how it turned out, and then it was interesting as we worked through this that we were working through some of the flood certificates, some of the flood areas, and so that was quite an education for Colleen. This is about 2.5 blocks, maybe 2 blocks from one of our bios here. One of the bio is kind of like a river, but it doesn't move, so it's just a way to drain water out from the area. And this particular piece of property has never flooded, it's never had an issue even through hurricanes, and never had any kind of an issue. But for some reason, it's designated as in a 100-year floodplain. So it was interesting to work through that and to get the insurance worked out and to get the windstorm insurance and all that worked out. Was interesting. And Colleen worked really hard on it and got it all put together. So it was great.
Yeah.
And then we found the title company back. Oh, it's been about a year ago, Tim, not quite a year ago. As you recall, I was having a short sale that I was working with, and we were working on a title company. And that's how we found the title company up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And they've been pretty good to us, a little slow, but they're pretty good to us. And they close these kinds of deals. And with a little education from Tim, it turned out okay on this
one. Right. Yeah, I mean, all of our deals, we can find title companies to close them. We just have to explain to them how we're going to do it. Because if they don't understand how we're going to do it, then I'll give you an example. One of the initially they didn't like they didn't like to close this deal because they thought that we're trying to collect the tax credit as part of this, I guess, as part of the closing, but we have to change the language and says no. the additional down payment that we're going to get is going to be outside of closing. So we're just gonna make that $8,000 a second lien instead of a tax credit thing. So so you just gotta explain it to them.
Yeah, and you worked your way past the closer, which was really good. She shot you right on to the fee attorney there, and Mr. Davis and you and he talked for about 5 minutes, and you put it together. It was great.
Right. Yeah. I that happens a lot actually. Whenever because escrow agents they don't I mean they're just like a like an intermediary. The behind the title company, there's two parties that are the most important parties. Number one is the underwriter, and the underwriter is the one that decides what type of closing that they are willing to do. And number two is the attorney who drafts the documents for whatever type of closing that you're trying to do. And once the underwriter says fine with it, then you need to talk to the attorney to tell them how you want to have uh, you know, the documents done, and for most of you in the beginning, hopefully you don't have to explain too much. But if you just follow this guideline, or even show them a copy of this HUD, they would, they'll automatically understand it, and they'll draft up the documents that you need. So I guess you could use this HUD as a way to explain it to them.
Yeah. So anyhow, that turned out pretty good. If there's any more questions on that.
Artie said, what was the seller's motivation in this deal? Was she already familiar with owner financing, or how did it work? I
Um,
believe that the seller motivation was she just wanted out. She's no longer living in the house, and she's willing to sell for what she owes on it, because otherwise she's gonna go into foreclosure, because she just can't afford to pay for the house anymore. And as a matter of fact, I think that at the time that we closed, she was already behind for the month of February. So started in February, she was no longer making payments on the house.
right. And she was somewhat familiar with owner financing, but Colleen did a yeoman's work on explaining that to her and getting her to understand how it all worked. And there was some a lot of talking going on at the very beginning of this, because she wanted to sell it outright, and she's got $107,000 house that's worth about $107,000. And so this was the only way for her to get out without having some credit issues. So it turned out really well for her. And the buyer has a little nick in their credit, and they're going to get it cleaned up, it looks like, and I think they've talked to her credit repair people, and so it's been good for them as well. So this is one of those win-win things, and it turned out very well for both parties.
Right. Okay. All right. Any more questions, y'all? Do you understand it pretty well? Okay, let me see here. Kelly said, what is considered a little nick?
What's a little nick?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'll be good. Let's see. A little nick would be someone who is, see, the kind of people we're seeing a lot of is someone who is self-employed that may not have the W-2s right now to support them getting a loan. So that's the kind of person we would see. We're seeing a lot of Hispanic people that don't quite have their Social Security yet, and so we're seeing a lot of that, and they have a lot of money, so they have a lot of cash, and they're trying to work through and get their nationalization, all that immigration worked out. So we're seeing some of that now, and then we're seeing some people that are just good people that lost a job 4, 5, 6 months ago, and now they've got a new job, but in the meantime they got behind on some bills, and that's kind of taking their credit score down a little bit. So those are the kind of people we're seeing right now. And they don't have a really certain credit score. I mean, we're not looking for, if you're above this or below that, you work out. What you try to do is you try to find people that have the ability to get a loan in the amount of time that is given. And so what you don't want to do is put somebody in there and there's no way they're going to get a loan. So you're looking for people that have good jobs. You're looking for people that pay their bills. We've had people that from one end of it, we had a guy once that applied for a house that he had just gotten out of prison, and he was in prison for kidnapping. So that's kind of on one scale, and we've got the scale of I can qualify for an FHA loan. I just don't have the W-2s yet, and I need a year to get that put together. I've got one, but not two. So we've had that happen too. So that's kind of the scale of people we see.
Right, and so I mean, little Nick is just a little term that Stan used to kind of lighten up a little bit about these people's situation. But yeah, people who are credit challenged, they have some issues on their credit that they need to work on, yeah, we with these type of deals, we are more looking for the ability to pay than we are looking at their credit. So if they, if they make a lot of money and we know that they can pay for it and hopefully they don't have a bunch of criminal cases and evictions and stuff like that would hinder it. But we try to find decent buyers, and that has some credit challenge.
Gilda, the specific Craigslist ad I think that Colleen uses, and we all use them in our apprentice group, is something like star desperate to sell, star owner financing, and then that's the headline, and then the body of the ad would be nothing more than 322 Northwest Houston and a phone number. And so we don't put anything in there about it backs up to a golf course or room for the kids to grow or any of that kind of stuff. There's no need for that. We just want the phone to ring, and that's how we're building our buyers list. And so out of that Craigslist ad, we'll get people who can really have a lot of money to put down and can make $1,500, $2,000 a month payments to people who can make $400 and $500 a month payments. But every one of those people are looking for a place, and then we just go and try to match them up. So that's what we do.
Right.
So they're pretty generic Craigslist ads. The seller owed 107. How was the deal structured as an owner financing? They owed 107, and we got 107.9 for it. I don't know that 107 is the exact amount. They may have owed just a little bit less than that. But basically what they're doing is they're financing that for these people and then making their payments as well. That's what a wraparound mortgage is in the state of Texas, and that's what we use. Okay, Tim?
Okay, well, that's let me see.
Yes, it would be nice if Colleen could do 1 or 2 live deals, TV shows, and we're working on her. We'll see. She's a little camera shy.
Well, Aussie, you can do one of the live deal shows. But awesome. Okay, well, y'all, great webinar. Hope you guys learned a lot about how to close these deals. This, you don't really need to worry about them. You just know that they exist, and you just need to know that there's a way to close them. What's more important is for you to go out there and make your calls and find the sellers, find the buyers, and put the deals together, and that'd be it. So go out there and do that. Okay. and hurry up and take advantage of it now while you can, because uh, there's only 2 more months left for you to get the tax credit. After the tax credit, the way we do these deals will be a little bit different, where the only money that we can make is from whatever the buyer has to put as a down payment, and also we'll be working, back to doing some wholesaling again, and so it won't be as easy as these deals are, but you know, we had our ride, we had our fun, so. All right.
Yeah, Gilda's last question, guidelines for finding a title company. I just got on the phone and made some phone calls and asked them if we could close these types of deals.
Yeah. If they close owner financing wraparound mortgage deals, that's it.
Right.
That's the only guidelines, as long as they close wraparound mortgage owner financing. Some
And they,
some of them actually don't close wraparound mortgages, so you do have to find out from them. But try to find an investor-friendly title company, and get referral from other investors as well would be good.
yeah, and let's do this Craigslist ad real quickly. It would be something like you use these three phrases: desperate to sell, owner financing, must sell, and you can put those in any order. So, desperate to sell, owner financing, or the next ad on Craigslist is must sell, owner financing, or owner financing, desperate, must sell. You can put those in any order, and that makes a pretty good title. And then the body of the ad would be 322 in Southwest Dallas and your phone number, or 422 in Northeast Houston and a phone number. Okay, or it could be just 322 and a phone number, and make it. They won't know where it is. They'll have to call you to get any information. So that's what we like to do. Take those three terms: desperate, owner financing, must sell, and then you just use them in any order, and use 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter, just make the ads different every time. It seems like we get more calls when we put stars or the asterisks on both sides of them, of the desperate, and it seems like we get more calls when we do desperate in all caps, and then owner financing as regular writing. That works pretty well too. Okay, but we make them extremely generic so that people will call us and we add them to our buyers list.
Right.
And these work anywhere, Tim. We did them in Austin this weekend, and just did a 322 North Central Austin, and gosh, the phone just started ringing. It was neat. Works anywhere.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Well, sounds good. All right, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and end the webinar for today. It was great having you guys all on here, and we will Stan will send these documents to send it to Josham, Stan, so that way he can zip them up and upload it into the members area for everybody. But make sure you edit these things out first.
I will.
All right. Thanks. Okay. All right, everybody. You have a great one, and see you next time. Make sure y'all tune in to the Happy Hour TV and the Live Deals TV now.
Thanks.
Right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Dan.